Hello and welcome to Taiwan Today. I'm Natalie So. With me in the studio is award-winning journalist Kathy Chen, who recently returned to Taiwan with her husband Kin Moy, who is the director of the American Institute in Taiwan. It's really great to have both of you here in Taiwan, your whole family. How does it feel to be back in Taiwan after all these years?
It really is like coming home. I spent 4 years here in the 1980s studying Chinese and working as a journalist, single and without kids. So it's a different experience, but it's great to be here.
And you came here originally to study Chinese. Why did you want to study Chinese at that time?
Well, being Chinese American, I thought it would be a good idea to get back in touch with my roots. I spent most of my childhood rejecting my roots, wanting to be like the American kids who lived in my neighborhood. But in college, I did start studying Chinese, and I thought it would be a great idea to come here and really improve on it.
Your Chinese is great. I heard you talking away. You sound like a very fluent Mandarin speaker.
Well, thank you. I tried to speak it as much as I can here.
So you do feel home here in Asia? You
Absolutely. I mean, we spent more than a decade out here on and off. When I was working as a journalist and Kim was working as a diplomat. And we actually had 2 of our kids were born in Beijing.
Oh, so. Wow. And do your kids speak Chinese too?
They speak Chinese poorly. We're working on that.
Well, they have time, right?
They're studying Chinese at the Taipei American School.
So you speak English at home?
We do speak English at home. It's because Chinese really is a second language for us. Even though I grew up hearing it from my parents, we mostly spoke English at home, at our home, and so it's
natural.
It's natural more to speak English, yes.
And so that was a big decision for Kin and you to move here as the AIT Director. What made you decide to take this role?
Well, I think for us, we've been in Asia most of our lives, most of our careers, and it's an interesting place to be. It's one of the most important regions in the world, an area that everyone's interested in, and the fact that Kin has had a lot of Asia, China, and Taiwan experience. So when the job came up, it seemed like a great opportunity, and it was a good chance, we thought, for our kids to come and see a little more of Chinese culture, to experience it firsthand, to improve their Chinese. And
it's a natural fit. For your family, right?
It is, and we actually have relatives here, and my mother grew up here, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so.
That's great. And for you, you used to work for the Wall Street Journal and won awards, and you were deputy bureau chief, very high-powered career woman. So changing to the role of, it's more of like a supporting role, right? Would you call it that?
Right.
Is that a big adjustment for you, or is it?
It's something that I'm trying to figure out now. Some of it comes naturally, I think, because even when I worked as a journalist, part of my job then was to really try and improve communication and understanding between different cultures. And I think that's part of my job here in supporting Kin. It's really an honor and a great responsibility too, though. And for us to, from a personal level, helping our kids adjust and understand the play, kind of feel at home here, but also just to, help Kin in his role to reach out to the local community, to support the American businesses here, to help Americans learn more about Taiwan and to improve the relations between the two sides. I mean, I think in addition to his official functions, we're trying to really personalize it a little more.
Yeah, that's great.
Kin has started blogging on the AIT Facebook page, and we try to do something daily. He includes some of his official duties, but we also try and include some of the things we do as a family here, whether it's celebrating Halloween and carving jack-o'-lanterns, or attending the Danny Pearl concert, or visiting different sites in Taiwan. I mean, we're trying to really use that as a way to kind of personalize our experience here, but also to help understanding on both sides.
So do your kids feel like they have to be on their best behavior because they're representing America, I mean, in Taiwan, do they feel, that kind of pressure?
Well, I hope they are on their best behavior, but I'm not sure they always are. I mean, I think blend in pretty well, I think, right now. So, and they mostly just run in the schools, and they do a few events, and hopefully they're well behaved.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure they are. I'm just curious what it's like as a diplomat family. I know it's a very exciting experience to be part of so many cultures, but there must be certain stresses as having to represent a country too, right? Like, do you always have to have your hair just right, and
Actually,
or whatever.
I'm probably not your ideal diplomat wife. I walk around in shorts and mostly get a lot of attention because I usually have my big black Great Dane with me.
Oh.
And so a lot of people stop me and ask me about that, and I think they have no idea who I am. But they like my dog.
So you feel free to be yourself.
Oh yeah, I think the important thing as in this position is to be yourself. I think because people can always find things to criticize, right? But I think being genuine, I think is that comes across. And
so there's not a lot of scrutiny from the public or the media.
Well,
not yet.
Right? We've got 3 years here, so we'll see. I think generally the people in Taiwan have been extremely friendly and nice and wonderful, including the media. So knock on wood.
So what do you like about this role?
It's a great opportunity to meet fascinating people. I'm hoping that we can contribute both by supporting the Americans and the local staff who work at AIT, but also work with Taiwanese on increasing understanding, on strengthening cooperation, and I think that it really gives us an opportunity, whether we're appearing with Kin at an event or doing something ourselves with the kids, whether it's reading American books to Taiwan kids. I'm hoping we can do that, or other things like that we can, kind of be part of the society as well.
So do you have a certain platform or personal one? Like the First Lady has her platform for
healthy food and healthy living.
And as the wife of the American Institute at Taiwan Director, do you have something that you want to do personally during your time here?
Right. Well, I think we've been here about 3 months, and we're just getting to know the place a little bit better. Things have changed a lot here. I think as a journalist, a former journalist, that I'm hoping that I can do some work with the local media or with students. Really? on news development, on
teaching us, basically. You
can
tell
maybe
us.
Doing some talks or meeting with journalists. I did some of that when I was in Beijing, when I was at the Journal, just meeting with local
Do
press.
they know that you're a Pulitzer Prize, winning journalist?
Here?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think they know that.
I'm not sure. So, but I think the media has done really well here, and I think, if we can do some volunteer work, volunteer work is really a big part of kids' lives and Americans' lives in the States, and our kids have all done a lot of that, and I'm hoping we can do some of that here as well.
I'm sure you can make a great contribution. I mean, all of your experience in whether the professional world or throughout Asia and in America.
Well, it's a great opportunity, and it's really an honor to be here in this position.
What do you like most about the lifestyle here?
There's a lot. It's a hard question. I mean,
what do you like about the lifestyle?
The food, of course, is great here. Everybody says that, but I think it's just, I love being in Chinese culture. I mean, I feel at home here.
Really?
I love being able to speak Chinese. I love fitting in. And being in this position specifically, the opportunity to meet lots of people that, if I were a journalist, I probably wouldn't be able to meet, and really kind of seeing how things work on the other side is interesting. And it's also being here at such an important time in Taiwan's history, with a presidential election coming up, potentially, and talks between Taiwan and China. It's an interesting time to be here. To see things happening and to see how Taiwan has changed over the last few decades.
What is the biggest change you've seen since the 80s when you first came here?
I think it's really the mindset of the people. I think, in terms of living in a democracy, that the way that people think has changed, their sense of responsibility towards society, the way that they talk about issues. Everybody it feels free to talk about politics, for example, you know, from the you know, working class people, taxi drivers, to, you know, white collar workers. Everybody's interested, and everybody's talking about it. It's really great to see it, especially coming from the 1980s when I worked here, where things were much more closed, you know. So I think, but it's just great being here.
Do you find people here are Chinese here are more very different than those in China and those in America?
Absolutely. I think there are big differences. I mean, there are similarities.
What are the similarities?
Well, the emphasis on education and good food. Absolutely. I think, but the differences, I think, are Taiwan has much more of an emphasis still on the old traditional culture that I think a lot of that was interrupted in China because of the Cultural Revolution. And you see it in the way that articles are written in the newspaper. You have the complex characters, the fantizi, but also just the way that sentences are more complicated, you know. So it's harder for me to read the newspaper here than in China, for example. But I think also people are genuinely very polite, nice, extremely well educated. I do think the one thing that I would say is I feel that it's a little unfortunate that Taiwan has become a little more insular in the last few decades. I think partly because of the situation, the international situation, and you know, China I think has really kind of come into its own in the last 10 to 20 years, and overall in Asia, it's you know, it's a big power, and I think it's kind of for everybody is kind of trying to figure out, you know, what is the role for, you know, what is China's role, what is America's role, and those are issues I think that are, you know, that are interesting to watch. But Taiwan people, I feel, have, you know, it used to be that there was a lot of, and there still is a lot of interest in Taiwan and the United States and going abroad, and people are very international here, but I think there is a real kind of focus on Taiwan.
Yeah,
that,
yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean?
And every little story.
Yeah, every little story is a big story. Yeah,
yeah.
So, and I think sometimes it's nice to be able to see the bigger picture.
Right. So that's why you're here, right? One of the reasons.
Well,
you can bring a little dose of America and American perspective.
Well, America and Taiwan have had great relations, and it's wonderful to run into all these people who speak great English, and who have gone to school in America, who have traveled to America, and I think in America too there is growing interest in, you know, Chinese culture, Chinese language. So
you guys got started early, right? In the 80s.
In the 80s, yes, before
so
it became trendy.
Yes. The trend.
Yes.
Well, it's been great speaking with you. It's great to have your family here. Thank you for coming to Taiwan. And it's been great speaking with Kathy Chen, who is here with her husband, Kin Moy, the director of the American Institute of Taiwan. Thank you for joining us, Kathy, and thank you for joining me on Taiwan Today.